World War II wasn't just a clash of armies. It was a clash of engineering philosophies. Nowhere is this more obvious than in the iconic tanks that battled across the Eastern Front, the Soviet T-34 versus the German Tiger and Panther. It's a story of quantity versus quality, simplicity versus sophistication, and ultimately, how design decisions can win or lose a war. Let's dive into what made these legendary machines so different. When you think of Soviet tanks, you think of the T-34. It was the workhorse of the Red Army, designed with one core principle: mass production. The Soviets knew they were going to be in a brutal, sprawling conflict, and they needed a tank that could be built quickly, in huge numbers, and repaired easily, right on the battlefield. The design was straightforward, almost crude by German standards, but it was incredibly effective. Its most revolutionary feature was the sloped armor. By angling the steel plates, the T-34 could deflect incoming shells that might have otherwise penetrated straight through. This simple geometric trick effectively increased its armor thickness without adding a ton of extra weight. The T-34 also used a diesel engine, which was less prone to catching fire than the gasoline engines common in German tanks. Plus, its wide tracks gave it excellent mobility in the mud and snow of the Russian landscape. The beauty of the T-34 was that it could be fixed with a hammer and a wrench. Parts were interchangeable, and the overall construction was simple enough that a conscript with basic training could get a damaged tank back into the fight. The Soviet Union treated its industrial capacity as a weapon. They accepted that they would lose tanks, but they could build them faster than the Germans could destroy them. This philosophy of attrition was baked right into the T-34's design. But living inside a T-34 was a brutal experience. The crew compartment was incredibly cramped and noisy. Early models didn't even have radios, so communication between tanks was done with signal flags, a huge disadvantage in a fast-moving battle. The two-man turret meant the commander had to load the gun, aim it, and command the tank all at the same time. And terrifyingly, there was often no escape hatch on the turret. If the tank was hit, the crew's chances of getting out alive were slim. The Soviets prioritized the machine over the men inside it. Now, let's cross over to the German side. When the Wehrmacht first encountered the T-34, they were shocked. Their existing tanks were outclassed. The response: the Panther and the legendary Tiger. These tanks were the complete opposite of the T-34. They were marvels of precision engineering, designed to be the ultimate predators on the battlefield. German philosophy centered on creating technologically superior machines that could dominate from a distance. The Tiger tank, for example, was armed with a formidable 88mm gun. Paired with superior German optics, a Tiger could spot and destroy a T-34 from well over a mile away, long before the Soviet tank was even in range to fire back. The armor was incredibly thick, making it nearly immune to frontal attacks from most Allied guns at the time. Inside, a German tank was a much better place to be. The Panther had a three-man turret with a dedicated gunner, loader, and commander. This division of labor made the crew far more efficient in combat. The ergonomics were better, the optics were crystal clear, and radios were standard. The Germans valued their highly trained, professional tank crews and designed their machines to protect them and maximize their effectiveness. They aimed for a small force of elite, high-quality machines that could achieve decisive victories with minimal losses. But this sophistication came at a tremendous cost. The Tiger and Panther were incredibly complex. They were over-engineered. The Panther, for instance, had an intricate interleaved roadwheel system. This provided a smooth ride but was a nightmare for maintenance. Mud and ice could freeze between the wheels, immobilizing the tank completely. Changing an inner road wheel could take a full day. These tanks were also gas guzzlers, and their complex parts were difficult to manufacture and transport. If a Tiger broke down in the field, it couldn't just be towed by any old vehicle. It needed a specialized recovery vehicle. Often, a breakdown deep in enemy territory meant the crew had no choice but to abandon and destroy their multi-million Reichsmark machine. German factories simply couldn't produce these complex tanks fast enough to replace losses, and their logistical chains struggled to keep them supplied with fuel and spare parts. So you have to radically different approaches. The Soviets saw their tanks as a consumable part of a massive war machine. They built a good enough tank in astronomical numbers. Simplicity and ease of repair were their force multipliers. The Germans, on the other hand, built exquisite, near-perfect killing machines that were difficult to build, maintain, and supply. They focused on technological perfection, but this created a fragile system. As the war dragged on, the weaknesses of the German approach became glaringly obvious. A single Tiger might be worth 5 T-34s in a one-on-one duel, but that duel rarely happened. Instead, that one Tiger would face 10 or even 20 T-34s swarming it from all sides. While the Germans were struggling to repair a single Panther, the Soviets were rolling a dozen new T-34s off the assembly line. Ultimately, the Soviet design philosophy proved better suited to the brutal realities of the Eastern Front. Their ability to sustain a massive, functional tank army despite staggering losses was a decisive factor. The war wasn't just won by bravery on the battlefield. It was won in the factories and on the supply lines. The T-34 wasn't the best tank of the war in terms of individual stats, but its design was the perfect answer to the strategic challenges the Soviet Union faced. It proves that sometimes the most effective weapon isn't the most advanced, but the one that best fits the grand strategy of a nation at war. The clash between these steel beasts shows us that in war, production is power and logistics are destiny. Thanks for watching. If you found this deep dive into tank design interesting, hit that like button and subscribe for more content. See you in the next one.